This is the Blockchain 360 podcast. Blockchain 360 is a podcast of interviews and discussions about the current state and direction of blockchain. Thank you for joining us today. If this is your first time listening, then thank you for coming. The Blockchain 360 podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at our website, blockchain360.co. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter at Blockchain360. All links discussed today are included in the show notes.
Hi, my name is Brian Nielsen, and I am your host here on Blockchain 360, where we talk about everything blockchain. My guest today is Anatole, and I'm not going to try to say the correct or the English or the
Swiss German
last name. So, what is it?
So my surname is Krattiger in English, and Krattiger in Switzerland.
So you're with Prism Innovations, and now Prism is, of course, is oftentimes used visually in the sense that a white beam of light comes into a prism and then it expands. So tell us, what is Prism Innovations?
So that's really, in fact, exactly the sort of idea behind it, that light comes, an idea, and then once it's transformed into something useful, innovative, it has all the 7 colors of the rainbow, or may have all the 7 colors.
That's what we hope.
That's right. And the whole thing, a prism, is incredibly innovative. If you think how nature made things, it's just beautiful, awe-inspiring. So that's why I took this this name as my boutique consultancy.
Okay, so how long has your boutique consultancy been around?
A couple of months only.
Wow,
in fact,
so brand new.
Very brand new, that's right, yes.
It's a brand new baby. So let's then step back and talk about, what did you do before?
So I worked for the last 8 years at the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO. UN,
is that a part of the UN?
Correct, it's one of the UN specialized agency. That
were you in New York
with,
or were
in
you
Geneva?
In Geneva.
They are
okay.
headquartered in Geneva.
And you're in Zug, right?
In Geneva.
Oh, you are
I'm
in Geneva.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So it's the organization that sets the standards, the rules, the regulations for intellectual property across countries globally. Be it
right.
patents, be it trademarks, be it industrial designs, copyright, etc. It's in fact one of the oldest treaties is around industrial property, and that's what the treaty that WIPO administers today.
And what did you do there?
So I was leading a program on global health, climate change, and food security that was dealing at the interface of policy, global policy, and intellectual property.
Wow.
So the question was, how do developing countries benefit from the intellectual property system in a much different world today than when in fact the system was created. We are much more interconnected, information flows, people flow, knowledge flows in a very different way than it used to. And my challenge was, what can we do proactively in order to really make the intellectual property system benefit resource poor farmers, poor people? How can we leverage private sector interests through the intellectual property system to address needs of the poor in developing countries? These were the kind of questions. And the last one was, how can we create a level playing field, a more transparent marketplace for green technologies to combat climate change and facilitate their development and adoption and use?
Wow, that's beyond fascinating. So
worthwhile to get up in the morning.
Absolutely. So you left, and you've now birthed this baby. And so what is Prism Innovations trying to accomplish? So you're a consultancy firm, but what
boutique,
roles are you wanting?
Small, yeah. So what we do is we assist, be it innovators, early stage, small and medium-sized enterprises. For example, I'm an advisor to an ICO, to a company that is currently doing the pre-ICO on intellectual property protection and management and use, called IP Chain.
Okay.
It's going to change its name to a much better name in my view, Voltitude, sorry. Volt,
yes.
Safe, Ditude, so it's going high.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So this consultancy, you're focusing on then the expertise that you have had for the past probably much more than the 8 years
Right.
that you were at the UN.
The original expertise is I'm a farmer, originally from Switzerland, and I'm very proud of that. I always like to mention this. But I
what
also...
did you raise?
I grew up next to a farm, so
Right.
we had cows, of course, and
Of
made
course.
cheese in the Swiss Alps.
Wonderful.
Yep, and I'm proud. That's my profession. But I also worked in molecular genetics, in improving crops, wheat and
Sure.
corn for developing countries.
Sure.
And look, this is how I got into intellectual property in the early 90s.
How to protect something that you create.
No. My then boss said, oh no, we cannot work with industry, with companies, because that is private technology. We are here for the public good to serve developing countries.
So how does that work?
Well, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
No. You can, of course, the public good is what we all need and want.
Right.
And in fact, the intellectual property system was invented in a way or another to enhance the public good.
Right.
Through private interests.
Correct.
Yeah. So there's always this this marketplace, if you want, or this interface between public and private. And if you want to enhance the public good in a context where there's no market, where there are poor people,
right,
then the intellectual property system is not going to be a driver of innovation into that market because there's no commercial market.
Right.
So therefore, you need different structures in order to incentivize collaboration. And that's
for these markets.
For these markets. And that has been guiding my career for the last 30 years, basically. How to structure those public-private partnerships, multi-stakeholder engagements. How do you manage intellectual property? You have to still manage it because you want to use private interests.
Yes, absolutely.
How do you do that in a creative way that benefits everybody, that brings a win-win-win?
So these...
That's my area. And that's where I consult. So that brings us back to Prisma or Prism Innovations. That's the area that I work in.
Okay. So
think of it in a simple way. The street lamp outside.
Yes.
Yeah? It's a perfect public good.
Right.
You come out of the restaurant
safety,
in front of me.
Right.
You have the light. You benefit from it. I come behind you and I benefit from the same light.
Right. You don't bump into me. It's not dark.
Right. Neither you nor I are excluded from benefiting from the light. So we have met, the street lamp has met the two criteria. It's whether you used it already or not doesn't diminish my value.
Right.
And nobody's prevented access.
Correct.
Okay, so perfect public good. However, the street lamp may be on private lands. The steel may be from China or from wherever. It was installed probably by a local contractor.
Right.
The electricity is supplied by a local or regional utility.
Right. Yep.
The light bulb may have plenty of patents in it from General Electric or Philips or whichever to be hyper efficient.
Right.
Patented.
Right.
Yeah. The design may have a design patent. It may have a trademark even.
Sure.
So everything about the street lamp is private. How come it's the perfect public good?
Because it does.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
It's the way it is made available in a particular context. So the same good can be public, a perfect public good in one condition, in one context, in one market, and can be a private one and completely filled with private innovations in another context. So the two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, on the contrary, the two reinforce each other. It's like the old water pits you had, and you had two oxes.
Yes.
And you look at them, and they pull on a cord and walk in opposite direction, and you think, why are they pulling on the same cord and go in opposite direction? This doesn't make sense. You have to go up further and see from above and see that they are turning the same wheel.
Right.
And that's what the public and private sphere are, and that's where intellectual property, in fact, is that middle ground managing that interface. One of the quid pro quos of the patent system, mainly people think about intellectual property as patents.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Coca-Cola trademark and so forth, or their secrets on how to make sugar water and sell it. That's, of course, another form of intellectual property with what is in it. But the key issue is the patents, and the quid pro quo is the government gives you protection, limited protection, for a period of time, in exchange for you disclosing everything you know about it.
So that's why they don't disclose it and they don't have a patent for it, because it's a secret. It's a corporate trade secret.
Fair game.
Right.
You have a choice.
That's right.
You are in the driver's seat.
Right.
So you choose one route or the other, depending of how you're going to get to the market, of where your customers are, where those that can use your innovations are. More importantly, you may want to find investors to put money in, and you may want to develop allegiances, collaborations, joint ventures, strategic alliances, and intellectual property or your patents then form the way of developing that collaboration.
Sure. All right, so we're at a blockchain conference.
Exactly.
Now, let's bring this into the blockchain conversation. Where does blockchain work in this? Because this is both a private and social structure that you've described, where it benefits both private institutions as well as the public good. How does blockchain fit into this?
Yeah. Well, with blockchain, of course, I'm enormously excited about the opportunities blockchain brings to the whole intellectual property system, from the protection, the filing, to the use, smart contracts, licensing, transfer, sharing, and so forth.
Exactly.
In fact, I'm over-enthusiastic, but I also know I'm no longer in my 20s. I also know that the short-term...
He's 31.
Well, this is wisdom growing, not age. I also know that the short-term impact of new technologies are always overestimated.
Always.
Most of the time.
Actually, it was Bill Gates that actually said, when we project forward 2 years, we overestimate what we can accomplish, but we underestimate what we can do in 10.
And that's the second point. The long-term impact of new technology is always underestimated.
Right.
So I think blockchain is the perfect example. The hype that we have here today is great, and that motivates young people especially to get in and learn and work on it.
Sure.
For governments, and we are here at the Government Blockchain Association, it's a little bit more challenging. And the reason is, think of the United States Patent and Trademark Office.
Right.
Bring it back to the USPT, to the intellectual property, the theme of our chat. Well, if I'm an inventor, I file to the USPTO.
Right.
It's a whole process that this starts. It may take 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 6 years before a patent gets issued.
Right.
There are lots of interactions with the patent office. The patent office has to make sure that this is really novel. Nobody had really thought of this before.
Right.
Absolute novelty, yeah. That this was known before by others, somewhere else, at some other part of the world.
Sure.
All of this kind of work can be done using the blockchain in future.
Right.
Much more effectively, much more efficiently. And if I want to go to other countries and have the same protection in 160 countries, I go to WIPO, where I used to work.
Right.
Well, in the future, with blockchain, this will all be streamlined and facilitated so that I don't have to pay $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 to get to 100, 120 countries.
You can do it quickly and efficiently.
Quickly and especially much more safely.
Right.
And then you add on top of it the possibility of facilitating licensing, sharing of intellectual property under different conditions. Maybe for you, because you're a nice guy, I will give it for a certain price. Someone else, I may give it for a different market at a different price.
Right.
With blockchain, you can start making this much simpler. It'll take time. There will need to be legal changes. There are lots of uncertainties. But the possibilities are just amazing.
Well, that's
and I wished in a way that I was in my 20s, because this would be my career. This will change the world of intellectual property in the next, let's say, generation. So we're talking about 20, 25 years. Not tomorrow. Nobody needs to be worried. Nobody will be out of a job. On the contrary, it will create many more, opportunities.
Sure.
Especially once it's mixed also with artificial intelligence, with machine learning. That's when this will have a tremendous impact. And I hope the GBA, the Government Blockchain Association, will also have people from the USPTO and from UN agencies.
It would make a lot of sense. Actually, they do have some members from the Library of Congress.
Which is on copyright, which
Absolutely.
is a very, very important. For example, how can I prove that this is really my work? Well, I can deposit it. I can mail it to the Library of Congress.
Yep.
It used to be $35. I know because I have a few things that I mailed them to ensure that I am protected.
Right.
Well, not really. That wasn't quite the right word, but that I can sue somebody who is using it and get get damages.
Right, right.
It's only after filing it with the Library of Congress. With blockchain, you can do that instantly.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So think of a world where scientists every day they take their lab notebooks and they upload it on the blockchain. It's confidential.
And it's a permanent record.
It's a permanent record. You know when it took place, where it took place, who did it.
That's true.
So in terms of patent prosecution, what facilitation blockchain applications will bring are wonderful, literally wonderful.
That's great. Anyway, Anatole, I want to thank you for appearing on this episode of Blockchain 360, and your insights are actually quite interesting because they're a little different than our usual guests, but it is actually more impactful to hear some of the things that are happening with intellectual property and how it's going to actually be transformed through the use of the technology blockchain.
Thank you. And there's several companies like Voltitude or IP Chain formerly that are working on this and that will really transform the world.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Blockchain 360 podcast is produced weekly. Have a question? Want us to interview someone specific? Wish to hear about a particular topic? Let us know. You can email podcast@blockchain360.co or tweet us on Twitter @blockchain360 or at our website blockchain360.co.